And Bloom, we are live.
I'm a
Great to
little.
see you, Monty. I don't want that to be missed since we weren't recording when we first said hello. So I just want to say it's great to see you, and it's been too long.
Yeah, totally, dude. Wait,
Mark,
hold
I
on a
see you all
second.
the time, but
Wait, hey,
Yeah.
Rob, great to see you again. Yeah, it's been forever.
yeah, are you still in New York City?
I'm still in New York City. I live in the same apartment since 1995. When my wife and I got married, we bought this place, and it's the only reason we can afford to live in Manhattan now because we were smart enough to buy an apartment back then.
Mm.
But yeah, still here in the same exact apartment that I've lived in any Chimaira conversation we've ever had. Because Chimaira was signed when? In like 2001?
2001.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been in this place since 1995.
I've
And
been there.
you know what's
You been-
crazy?
Yeah.
Oh, you were in my apartment, Mark?
Yeah. You
When?
invited me up. I don't remember the exact date or era, but I was definitely there. We were doing something together. It was nighttime, and we had to stop up and grab something. And
Wow.
I was there.
Well,
You
it's
let
funny.
me. I didn't lay in your bed though. I asked, but
Well, wait, you guys have heard the famous story about when Devin Townsend came to my apartment, right? Did you
I
hear
have
that?
not.
I haven't.
All right, so this isn't the apartment I live in now. This is when I lived alone, right? Before I got married. This was in 1992. So I had a studio apartment that I had just moved into. It was like a month in. And I'm a very neat person, right? Like things are organized, not a lot of clutter, everything's neat. But there's a difference between being neat and clean, right? I'm not the kind of guy that's dusting and keeping clean, but I'm a neat guy. So anyway, Devin Townsend, we were trying to sign Strapping Young Lad to Roadrunner, and the Roadrunner office was just a few blocks away from my apartment. So we wound up there one night, and Devin, being the lunatic that he is, he walks into the apartment and he's like, it's again, I've been living there a month. He's like, dude, this place is immaculate. Look how clean it is. He's like, I could eat off the floor. And he bends down and licks the floor of my apartment and comes up with a pubic hair in his mouth.
Oh no!
And he actually talks about this in his book. He released a
Wow.
book. Yeah, I can send you when we hang up. I'll send you him talking about it. It's pretty
That's
hysterical.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But it's funny, guys. It's funny. One thing I just wanted to say, because we were talking about when Chimaira got signed, but I went back and I know, Rob, I was talking to Mark about this because I never liked the way Pass Out of Existence sounded, right? You guys know that. But I have to say that I think it has aged well because these days, records, everything is done in such a cookie cutter fashion, right? Like records don't even have personality anymore because by the time you do them all on the computer and you smash them through the brick wall and everything's like it's like coming at you through a straw. And like every record these days kind of sounds the same, right? So they've like lost their personality. Whereas back in the old days, every record, like Pass Out, Self-Titled, Impossibility, Reason, every record completely has its own sonic template. And I really appreciated it, even though I didn't love the Pass Out mix at the time. When I went back and listened to it, I appreciated that it sounded like a real fucking record. Like you can hear drum tones, the drums had a tonality, like you could tell it was worked on. It had a nice bottom end. And I really kind of found a newfound appreciation for that record. I just wish it wasn't so long. Because that was in the era where like CDs was a new toy and we're going to like stick if you could cut 3 or 4 songs off that record, maybe 3, it would have been a better record. But I was actually into it way more than I was in the past. That is until I heard your remix of Severed.
Right.
And that thing's just fucking unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It slams. That
You
guy
gotta
did
do
a
the whole
killer
record.
job.
Do the whole
Yeah.
record.
So a couple things about that is we didn't intend for the record to be so long, but in our contract, Roadrunner had a stipulation that like demanded a certain amount of songs. If you recall, I don't remember what there was a technical term for it in the contracts, but we were bound to deliver 14 songs. So we actually created a Bayo, which is a bullshit instrumental filler. And then we pulled out a couple songs to redo from This Present Darkness so we could have enough material to put it on there. But I totally agree about the length of it. But we kind of didn't know what else to do about that situation.
Well,
but yeah.
You know what's weird is, and I guess Kevin and I would have to take blame because I believe that the reason that it had that in the contract was that we wanted to have leftover shit for like B-sides, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it meant we had to put 14 songs on the record. It just meant we wanted 14 songs so we'd have extras. And then, of course, People get married to songs. You know, this guy wrote this part, and you know, like everyone always wants everything on the record. But you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword because while I think it hurt the record, at the same time, think about it now, especially as a band that no longer exists, right? Like Pass Out of Existence was a snapshot in time, right? It's never going to be recreated again. You're never going to be back where you were. So like for all time, all people are going to have are those 14 songs. And wouldn't you rather have 14 songs from that era than just 11, right? So it's kind of like this historic thing as well to just like put it down while you're there and document it.
It's a great point.
Yeah, so I look at it as a double-edged sword, you know, like
the fans that we gained from that era are still fans today, a lot of them, and that's what's pretty mind-blowing. And that during the pandemic and we were all home and I streamed a lot and I would perform all the time, and those songs came up a lot from requests, and I'm like, you guys want to hear Options? What? Right? Like some random deep cut from that record. And I found a new appreciation from singing again and actually seeing in real time how the fans liked it, right? And then so it kind of grew on me a little bit as well. And playing the songs live, some of them still really hit. And what's interesting to me was years later was when the deathcore scene was emerging, all of those bands said that was their Reign in Blood, if you will. Wow. So like Amir, Suicide Silence, Whitechapel, they were always like talking about that record. Excuse me?
Bleed the Sky.
Bleed the Sky. All those bands were hugely influenced by Pass Out, which was like, what? we didn't think that scene was kind of not derivative of that, but derived a bit from that record. So that was pretty cool to find out. So it wasn't a total loss. It's
not a surprise though, because if you think about it, you know, Suicide Silence were one of the first deathcore bands, right? Who was first, them or Job for Cowboy? But Suicide Silence always loved Korn and like had one, you know, they definitely had one foot in nu metal, like you guys did on Pass Out.
Right.
And so it doesn't surprise me that they would have gravitated towards that because you were kind of predating what they were doing, like combining, you know, death metal, with nu metal.
Right.
So
yeah, just turning 30, I just could recall we were hugely influenced by Deicide, Once Upon the Cross. Like that was always in the drumming in our records. Rob would always say, do the Deicide beat to Andals. And that just meant he had to hit the crashes on the accents. And like, that's just kind of like the technical term for that. But yeah, Pass Out was heavily influenced by Corpse and Deicide but also Korn and Soulfly and Slipknot.
Well, I would say next time Warner wants to I know that there's already been a vinyl repressing, whatever, but if it ever gets pressed again, you should remix the whole thing. I mean,
that was the other thing I wanted to say. I would love to do that, but rumor has it they can't find the files for Dead Inside. So I don't know what we do about something like that. Like there's those when we went to work on the 20th version, 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
We discovered that Dead Inside was just, they couldn't find it in the vault, if you will, and through the files. And so we would have to either do everything but that song or figure out a different means, you know, but unfortunately that we can't. So we tried to pick a couple songs that we thought a new remix would.
Well, wait, was there another one besides Severed that I'm not remembering?
Did we do more than Severed, right? We did 3 songs. Split maybe.
Oh, wow. Do I have those? I don't know if I've ever heard those.
Let me pull it up. They're on Spotify. I'm going to pull it up real quick.
While you're looking, Monty, I wanted to say real quick about the Sonics of that if you knew how you said, you know, you thought it didn't sound great at the time, but now you like it a little more. We feel the same way, exactly the same way. But if you knew how many times over the years that we've said, Monty was right. You know, Mark said it the other day. You know, but you tell us, but you know how a band is, they're stuck in their ways at the time, or they think they're onto something, and that's how we felt. You know, we were excited. You know?
Yeah. No, I remember, Mark, you and I were on the phone, and you were getting like pretty aggro with me when I told you.
Yeah, I recall that conversation, and I still hate that myself for that conversation. You know, sometimes you'll be sleeping at night, and then you'll think about something dumb you said 30 years ago. That's one of those moments I often have. So anytime I'm in the press, I make sure I say like, I argued with Monty but he was right in the end. And I, from that moment on, I did my best to make sure I listened to your advice a little with more grace.
Well, hey, it's nice to know that even though it wasn't an ideal record for the time, that, you know, the sound was not ideal for what we could have had at that time. It's nice that we can kind of revisit it now and hear and appreciate it more. Because there's still, even though it's not the greatest mix, there's a lot to appreciate about it. That it sounds like a real fucking band, that it's got real tones, it's got killer low end.
Yeah, it's huge sounding.
Yeah, and the thing is, like with anything, you know, you put it on, it sounds a little weird at first, you don't love the way it sounds, but then it's incredible how the human ears adjust. Because like 30, 40 seconds in, it starts to sound really good. Your ears acclimate to it, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's why, like, you could put on an old Pantera record or some of the Fear Factory records. Like, Fear Factory records are searing bright, right? You put those on, and the high end takes your head off, but then like 30 seconds in, it doesn't anymore. Your ears right away adjust, and that's why there's such a huge sonic range in records that are like piss bright and really dark, and your ears acclimate, and it all works in the end. And that's why there's such a wide range of sonics that are acceptable. You know. So anyway, I have to say I was really happy when I revisited Pass Out. I found myself way more into it than I ever was in the past.
That's cool, and I appreciate it more as well, and the experience of recording it for us was huge. I mean, Kevin, when he brought us in and basically we're like, hey, you're going to go to LA and do this record in a professional means, you know, we were a garage band essentially. So it was a crazy experience to be involved, not only to be on Roadrunner and everything, but to get to do a professional recording and analog boards and all that stuff that is so taken for granted now and not really appreciated or understood, like the amount of time we spent on on those tones that we ultimately maybe didn't love at the end of it, but we spent days, right? Like getting those sonics, and that sucked because we were in a rock and a hard place. We were in a mud rock and a hard place, if you will.
wait, did Mud Rock cry during the sessions, or was that a different record? Because Kevin did a few records with him back then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall him crying. Do you, Rob? I think he got really upset though that you didn't like the guitars, and we were kind of like, oh man. But I remember Rob there was a blatant memory I recall, like Rob getting so frustrated with the guitar tone. It's like, it's supposed to sound like fucking Deicide. Like, it's like we wanted it to, or it didn't. Yeah, you wanted it to. You like, I wanted to sound like Deicide, and it was just like not you know.
It must have been Once Upon the Cross, Rob.
Of course,
because that's the only. You know, Deicide are notorious for having shit guitar tones, right? Once Upon the Cross is the only Deicide record from in the Roadrunner years that had like chunky guitars.
Oh, it sounds killer.
And Scott Burns and I had mainly Scott, put it on Scott because he's producing, but man, he had to beat up the Hoffmans to get that tone. And they didn't like it. That's why on Servants of the Light, the record after, they went right back to that shitty tone.
Yeah.
Like we tried to
play school guitar sound. We call it a play school amp.
Yeah, dude, we showed them the way. This is how it should sound. And like they didn't like it. I mean, to their credit, they legitimately just wanted that play school sound. That was what they, because when they heard it otherwise, they were unbending. They were still like, no, we want to go back and do this. So, yeah, but Once Upon the Cross is their classic.
I've always got a great memory of a story you told that I'll retell loosely. And if you don't want me to tell me, just stop it. But maybe you could fill in the blanks. But you were talking about on one of the albums, maybe it was Once Upon the Cross, there was some discrepancy you were going over with the brothers about who did what solos. They wanted the solos listed, who did what. And one guy got so mad at you that before he hung up the phone, he said, "Oh, I'll see you in the gym," or something like that. That was his threat or something. He was going to get you at the gym or something.
That's a classic story. Yeah. Wait, is this going to be in the podcast or is this just like?
Yeah, unless you don't want it to be, but why not?
Yeah, if you want us to cut this, we can just hear it.
No, you know what happened was the story with that whole thing was that basically I was the guy at the label that was, I would get the credits from the band and type them all up and get them all delivered to the art department to lay out. So I would get the credits from Glenn, and the lyrics did not have leads listed, right? some bands in their lyric sheets, especially bands with two guitarists, they like it to say, like in Slayer, I don't know if, just give me an example, I don't know if Slayer does it or not, but it'll say like lead King, lead Hanneman, or whatever. Like some bands like to define that. Others don't give a shit. But it was important for Eric and Brian to have that in the lyric sheet. So they would deliver that to Glenn. But Glenn didn't want it in the lyrics. So he would take it out. He would send it to me, and we would design the record. I would send proofs to Glenn, how artists sign off on a package before it goes into print. Glenn would sign off. I was dealing with Glenn. I wasn't dealing with the other guys. I was assuming I was sending it to Glenn. Glenn was sending it to the rest of the band. But Glenn wasn't showing anybody. So literally the Hoffmans didn't see the final product until they had a CD in their hands. So Eric's looking at it. He's like, where's my fucking leads? And then, calls me up freaking out, blaming me. I'm like, dude, talk to fucking Glenn. Glenn's the one that's taking him out. So I told him this, and then it happened, he's like, okay, I get it, whatever. And then it happened again on a second record, no leads.
Oh, no.
And at that point, he called me up just freaking out, like threatening my life. I'm going to fly up there and slap the fucking shit out of you. You're going to be shitting all over yourself. I'm going to, dude. And Eric is a scary fucking dude. Yeah. Like a big fucking scary guy. If Eric had lived in New York, I would have been shitting my pants. But I knew he wasn't going to fly up from Florida to kill me.
Right.
But anyway, it was so funny. It was, and I totally understood his frustration. Like,
can't mess with the guy's leads.
Yeah, he wanted him in there, and like Glenn's taking it out, and then he doesn't even find out till he gets the final product in his hand. So I totally appreciate where Eric was coming from. He was just coming after the wrong guy. I'm like, dude, go beat up Glenn. But that was a great story. Yeah, I have so many, stories over the years, but out of all the bands I ever worked with, I think I have more Deicide stories than anyone else, just because they're such characters.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But man, Once Upon the Cross to me is still the greatest death metal record ever made. One of the greatest.
Yeah.
I always call it the Bon Jovi of death metal.
Because of the hits. Yeah.
Well, because if you think about it,
songwriting, yeah.
The songwriting, you have these 3.5 minute songs. There's not an ounce of fat anywhere on the record. And the songs are perfectly arranged, verse, chorus, bridge, like hooks. Like if you really can put that record on an acoustic guitar and just distill it down to the elements, the songs are written like Bon Jovi hits.
Yeah.
Every single track.
Yeah.
It is by far the most commercial death metal record ever made, in my opinion.
To me, that's the golden age of death metal. Morbid Angels, Domination, Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding, all of those records, and Once Upon the Cross. I think that's when they started doing typical song structures with verse, chorus, all that kind of stuff. Where you didn't hear that a lot before. It was just riff after riff, and that's what you hear nowadays.
I think Death is a big responsibility too for the song structure, and Chuck was really big into song structure as well, and having the hooks come back, and especially on Symbolic.
Yeah, well, hey, Symbolic's the only death record that I was involved in, and it's the best sounding one. What is that?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, it's my favorrid drums of all time of any record in metal.
It does sound amazing. I had nothing to do with it though. That was Jim Morris. That just fucking did an amazing job recording and mixing that record. But also, I also think the first Deicide record's amazing too. Like to me, the first record, I go back and forth between what's better, the first Deicide or Once Upon the Cross. There's something about the first record because it's the first one, right? I still think Glenn never sounded better than he does on that first record. And then they kind of lost me on Legion. Like I'm not a big Legion fan. That record just, to this day, it leaves me cold. Like, I mean, I just don't embrace it like I do the first and the third records. To me, it just
interesting.
Yeah, but a lot of fans think Legion's the best Deicide record. There's like either a hardcore contingent that thinks it's the best thing the band ever did, or there's other people like me that don't think it's as good as the first and third record.
I didn't get into the first as much, but I do like Legion. I'd say it's tied for second place with Serpents of the Light. But you got to get past those recordings.
Dude, Serpents is fantastic. Like,
great grooves.
Serpents does not get the love like Once Upon the Cross, but really Serpents is like Once Upon the Cross Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
They're like sister records, the same way like people say Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules are like
Black Sabbath. Yeah,
Serpents is like literally almost as good as Once Upon the Cross, but I don't think it gets the love because it doesn't have those chunky guitar tones. It doesn't have the production. Yeah, the production went back to the play school guitars. I like
that's
that.
what I learned to respect more and more about working with you was, you know, through the album cycles is your attention to detail and your understanding of production. When we were working on Pass Out, we hadn't really established that relationship yet. So it was kind of like you were the boss coming in and like, hey, I'm gonna meddle with this or something, and we're like, what is this? And whereas on by Impossibility, we had now, like, we understood a lot more about where you were coming from and respected your opinion differently and more. But still, when we deliver our demos for Impossibility, you're like, eh.
Well, you know, looking back, it's so funny because I remember being, you know, like you said, meh, like, eh. But I think I might have been a little hard on you guys because, yes, we didn't have Pure Hatred. We didn't have Power Trip, which are the two biggest songs on the record. But we had all these other killer songs. So I think I might have been a little hard on you guys, but I'm glad I was, because that's what was the impetus for going back in. You did 3 more songs. Did Down Again come from that as well?
I believe it did, or at least finished it. Yeah, or made it better by that point.
Just another case of Monty was right.
Right.
Well, hey, I love the fact that, you know, I mean, whether it's true or not, I like that Power Trip's about me, kind of, right?
It's got a little anti-Roadrunner. Dehuman too. Dehumanizing process
For
too.
real?
Yeah, a little bit like, you guys.
Wow. But wait, did that song, that was on the original demo though, right?
I believe so. Dehuman is like more of like a anyone and everyone that kind of didn't believe in us vibe, right? So there was not that Roadrunner didn't believe in us, but there was that fear of being dropped, and we had to deliver something like fantastic. So all those types of pressures and thoughts will come in while I'm writing and working on something. So while it's not my Power Trip's not like fuck your Power Trip, Monte Conner. Monte Conner's influence comes in when I'm writing a Power Trip, right? Of the like, it's like the anger and the feelings that surround working on something or art like that. It could be a label or whatever in any song, right? It's all coming from someplace, unless I'm being specific, right? But yeah, that was a conglomeration. I feel like there was Overlooked has a little bit of that as well in Impossibility. I feel like there were a few songs I was kind of channeling the fear and there was anger, because like I felt like Pass Out, and it wasn't like directed at you necessarily, but or the label, but the experience of like you guys were bought out, right, by Island, and that kind of delayed our record Pass Out for a long time, in which it also leaked. So then we didn't like have any kind of the leak chatter on the internet wasn't positive. So then it was like, it felt like we were on our last hope, probably, right? Like by the time we were done with the Pass Out cycle, we were like, it's make it or break it time, right? And so we delivered the first few songs to you, and when the meh came in, it was like, oh man, now I'm really pissed.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand how hard that would have been for you guys. Yeah. You know what's so fun about revisiting these days when you look at it years later, and I say this a lot, like, you know, the stuff we went through back then when you guys were writing these records, when you were out touring them, when they were new records, you know, like everything was so life and death, right? Like you literally felt like your entire life was on the line. And I'm not just talking about you guys as the musicians and this is your shot, you're making these records. I felt the same way too, even being an A&R guy and being at the label and, you know, having my own career that was based on the bands I signed. Like everything felt so life and death. So you'd get a mix in and it would be shitty and you'd want to kill yourself and you'd lose sleep over it. You'd torture yourself the way we did over Pass Out. Like, you know, but in the end, when you look at it 30 years later, you realize like it wasn't life and death. It's just part of the journey, right? Yeah. And it's like ultimately all that matters is your health, your family. And we could look back now and put it all in perspective and see that in the end, everything came out okay. All right. So maybe the mix on Pass Out could have been better. Maybe, you know, could have come out 6 months later. Maybe such and such could have happened. But in the end, right, you've got this amazing career. You planted your flag. You have these records that are going to live on as your legacy that people are going to be talking about and listening to 50, 100 years from now. and it all worked out, right? It's not
Absolutely.
nice. It's nice how life works.
Absolutely. I think that's a big thing is I try to express when doing interviews and stuff, and people will bring up Roadrunner, or I recently did the interview with Roadrunner documentary that's in the works. I feel like we were extremely, had extreme tunnel vision, and if something went wrong, it was your guys' fault, right? And like we didn't know who else to blame and anything like that. And now, after so much time has passed, and you see the big picture, and you see how the industry works, and like you said, it's not life or death. And what really matters at the end is all this cool shit we've done, and that what it'll last. That's totally my perspective now, but I think that doesn't come until you experience all of the things and go. And while you're going through those things, is like how you react to them, right? I feel like I reacted poorly on some situations, especially like I said, with that conversation where I'm like with you on the guitars, but then you learn like, damn, I don't want to do that again. So you listen, and that's when I think when we were working on Self-Titled, I recall you bringing up the guitars, and like you made us redo them all again. I don't know if you recall that.
I don't remember that. Wait, the Self-Titled? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What was my
We
issue
listened.
with it? What was my issue with it? I don't even remember. This is like totally like out of my head.
Cool.
Well, you taught us something amazing during that. Many things, but from my recollection, when we sent the first mixes, we had recorded our normal way, just I think how we did with Impossibility, which was like probably 5152s through Mesa cabs. And you got the first mixes, and you were like, "Yeah, I don't really think the guitars are there. Can you guys try reamping them?" And we're like, "What's reamping?" And you're like, "Oh, well, you just send your DIs through another head and cab or whatever," and like that. And we're like, "DIs? What are those?"
Oh, you didn't have DIs, right? So you had to redo them from scratch.
I love telling people the story because it's a thing. There are times when things don't exist until you become aware of them.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, dude, look at Machine Head, right? We, the infamous record is Machine Head. The More Things Change. That record was recorded like 3 times. The guitars were completely retracked 3 times. Because I don't think the technology back then existed where there was DI, right? So Rob Flynn are literally going and redo it. And, that record, man, talk about a hellacious record that record almost killed Rob and I both. But you put it on today and it sounds fucking amazing, right?
Yeah, it's one of the
cares
best.
about what you went through. It just sounds, you put it on and the end result makes it worth it. But
Totally.
I totally do not remember.
Then you said I want a different guitar sound, so we had to then retrack the whole thing, and we retracked a left and a right through a Wagner Uberschall, and then Colin ended up blending everything. So that's the only album of ours that's quad tracked, and in my opinion, it's the best sounding guitar. So once again,
wow, damn, I didn't even realize I did good with that one. So what? Basically, the final record is just like a heavier guitar tone than what it would have been.
Right. We tried mixing a little bit with Ben at first because we were trying to be budget conscientious, and it's nice to stay in Cleveland, and he wanted to have a shot at it. And we sent you the first mix of Probably Nothing Remains would have been the song. Yep. And I remember you immediately you were like, "Nah, man, the guitars need to come back to life, more beef." Yeah. I also remember you, which was a really cool experience. You came out to Cleveland while we were writing as well.
I remember that. I remember being in you had a whole you had your whole demo situation, your demoing studio set up in your rehearsal room. I remember that.
Yeah.
But dude, because you can't, how do you go from Colin, right? Colin on Impossibility to Ben, right? And I believe some of the Ben mixes we used on some songs, right? Like bonus tracks or whatever, I think were Ben mixes.
That's totally I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. I think he did Clayton and one of the other Malignant or something.
Yeah.
What a memory. Look at that.
Yeah, I did. Just pulling him out of thin air. But I have to say, in the end, I'm like, and I'm sure you guys are thrilled with the way the Self-Titled record sounds.
Yeah.
I was telling Mark the other day, and I don't think he realized this, that Colin had told me for years later that he would use the song Inside the Horror as his like mix when he was doing a new record and he was trying to make sure, he was in the ballpark and everything was right. He would always throw it up next to Inside the Horror to make sure it was, and to see if he could beat that. That was like his gold standard mix on the record. And
That's
I
so
remember,
amazing.
yeah, and it became mine too, because once he told me that, and when you go back and you listen to that song, it does just have something to it, you know? Like the
Yeah.
whole mix on that record's amazing. The low end on Nothing Remains, it's probably your best sounding record. It's not, if I'm remembering correctly, when you go back and listen now, Impossibility may be a little on the bright, sizzly side.
Absolutely.
Which I don't think this. I think the self-titled is a little bit more of a balanced, pleasant listen.
Yeah.
We were chasing Pantera a little bit on Impossibility, and that's partly the choice when working with Ted. I feel like we were maybe trying to go a little bit brighter. That Pantera, Far Beyond Driven,
Yeah.
kind of has that. That would have been an influence of ours, I imagine, and I don't know if that kind of has a similarity of what you mean by that, but
No, well, you are right, Mark. I don't know if you realize, but Ted had mastered Impossibility. We went back and had him make it a little. We're like, okay, it's great. Just give it a little more brightness. So he had actually mastered it a little darker, and then we made him make it brighter. I don't remember if that was my decision or something I made in conjunction with you guys, but it is a little bit brighter because we went back. But like I was saying, you put that record on right now, and it'll sound bright for like the first half of a song, and then it doesn't sound bright anymore. Your ears adjust.
right.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, what would you change? That Impossibility was just a perfect record. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't take that brightness off. I love it just the way it is.
Same. Yeah, it brings a little bit of extra aggression to it. I think I think we were chasing a little bit of the loudness before the loudness thing was a thing too. I think like we wanted to push the limits right to where the speakers, just before they were doing that Injustice for All thing where they woof your speakers out a little bit. We were trying to push it just to before it would do that. I remember testing the speakers until they wouldn't crackle anymore. We also tried George Marino on that album too. Do you remember that? He was one of the first ones. Yeah.
Did we not like what he did?
Yeah. Again, that was a boomier presentation of the record, and I think he did Down Again. I should find it for you. He did Down Again, and the reason we wanted George Marino obviously is we were huge Metallica fans, and he had done so many of their records, and it had that Metallica bottom, but it felt like it needed a little more of that tight Pantera bottom with a little more screaming top end. Yeah.
Well, keep in mind the reason what you're saying with Injustice for All with that woof.
Yeah.
Part of it is because there's so much low end in the guitars, because the guitars are functioning like the guitars and the bass. Like the low end in Injustice is coming from the low end of the guitars because there's no bass.
Yeah.
So that's why you're hearing that woof in the guitars. If they they could have taken that woof out and fucking put Jason up, you know. By the way, the mixer Jay Rustin had gone in and remixed a bunch of songs from Injustice for All. He was using, you remember like when bands were putting stems on games?
Right.
Whatever? There's some game that came out that had a bunch of stems from that for Injustice for All, enough stems for Jay to be able to like do his own mix, even though he didn't have multi-tracks. And he went in from those stems and did mixes of songs from that record that sound fucking amazing. Amazing. I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
When we hang up, I'll send, I don't know if I have your email, Rob, but I'll send it to you, Mark. You could forward it.
Absolutely.
Wait till you hear what these things sound like, how good they are. That's awesome. Why I don't understand why Metallica didn't just, when they reissued that record, why they didn't just fucking remix it like fans wanted. Now, did they do it just because they want to be purists, right? Like, well, this is, or is it just still a pride thing? Like, well, you don't want to admit you were wrong. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think they should have at least remixed it and then had both versions, the original and the remix. Fans would have loved that. And who knows, maybe they'll still do that one day.
Yeah, who knows? Pearl Jam did that with 10, right? They had the two different mixes on one of their vinyl releases, because I know that that's a thing. So who knows? From your inside experience, when that Metallica album comes out, do you think that's a publicity stunt partly to get people talking because of the way Lars is? Maybe.
What do you mean a publicity is? What a publicity?
Taking the bass out of the album during the time.
No, I don't think it was a publicity stunt. I just think that's where Lars and James were at. Like, that's just the vision that they had and the decision they made. And so believe me, if those guys are making that decision, it's for creative reasons. It's for the art. It has nothing to do with any fucking publicity or any stunt. That's just what they were feeling at the time.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know why. Like, it seems like are they mad at the bass player, or is it the sound? Is it like a marketing thing? Like, what the hell is this? Right. But I just love how it sounds. So it's just,
Yeah, they probably just thought it was right at the time.
yeah, right.
So
Well,
for me, it's my favorite record of all time, and it's perfect from top to bottom. Everything from the production to the songs, everything. So I've always just ignored those bass mix up ones. If it comes with your recommendation, I'll definitely check it out.
But Rob, check this out. If you love that record, you know who else loved that record? Was the band Heathen on Roadrunner. I'd signed Heathen because they'd put out their debut record on Combat called Breaking the Silence. And then I had signed them for their second record, Victims of Deception. And when they made this record, like basically And Justice for All had just come out. So, it's Metallica. The same way everyone wants to emulate Pantera, make it bright and the clicky kick drums. That's was the sound. And Justice for All comes out, and these Heathen guys, they think, okay, this is the gold standard. This is what Metallica does. They made a record with the bass is just as buried. The guitars are just as woofy. It's literally And Justice for All Part 2. But you know what? It actually sounds better. Have you heard that record?
No. I've heard of the band, but I've never heard them.
My God, I gotta listen to it.
I gotta send you this as well. This is literally And Justice for All production, but arguably a little bit better. I think it sounds a little better. I'll send you a link. It's fucking
I'll
amazing.
check that out.
Yeah.
Does it, from the record label perspective, does it like when you're coming into the self-titled sessions now, like, so Impossibility does pretty decent, does your mindset change on where the band can be, and you come in and hear the demos and you're like, oh no, these guys are doing some really long progressive shit now, where's the power trip?
Well, the thing is, in a lot of ways, the self-titled record was really like your second record. And I say that because, to me, the dreaded sophomore slump, everybody hears about this. Like, a band has their entire lives to write their first record. You write it over your, 5-6 years, you road test the songs, and that's why bands' debut records are usually better, or often better, than the second. Because then all of a sudden, the second record comes along, you have limited time to write it. You have all the eyes and ears of the world on you. Like, you have when you're making your first record, nobody cares. There's no expectation. You can just go and do it. No one's screaming for it. There's no expectation of what it's going to sound like. The label's not up your ass if it comes a little late. But all of a sudden, you have a record like Impossibility. It puts you guys on the map. The whole metal world's wondering, okay, what are they going to do next? When is it coming out? There's all this pressure on you. And I think that's why so often you see second records that are just not as good as the first. And the only reason I'm saying self-titled is like I'm equating it to your sophomore record, because it's really, to me, the sophomore record is the first record you make in the spotlight, right? Where there's expectation. That was the self-titled record. Like, Impossibility put you on the map. Now all eyes are on you. What's coming next? So in many ways, that is like your sophomore record. So for me, I would have felt the pressure of that, of like, how do we beat that record? You know what I mean? And really analyze it and, and feel the pressure of having to beat it, which I'm sure you guys felt as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, it was very different. Longer songs. I mean, even looking back today, although I think sonically it's your best sounding record, for me, I still like Impossibility is still my favorite Chimaira record. Like, I still feel like self-titled, even though it's a great record, for me, like, Impossibility is still my record. I like the shorter songs, more hooky. Self-titled, just, you really got to listen to it a few times and digest it. There's not a lot of songs to me that are super immediate. I guess Inside the Horror is, Nothing Remains is. It's a great record, but if Impossibility is a 10, self-titled for me is like an 8.5 or a 9. Would you guys agree? Or
I might give it about, like, I'm more of a 7.5 kind of guy.
Okay.
It's not my favorite record, but I think in terms of sound and sonically, like, I think that I would put that like 10.
Yes, your best sounding record.
I think it sounds killer. I think the production is really organic sounding.
Yes.
And that's what I like about it. I'm not so personally attached to I just feel like I sang too much and I didn't deliver enough hooks, which is tough, because when you're working on something, you know, you're trying to put a composition and lyrics together that like are going to be impactful, but sometimes those lyrics, like, they work and they might sound good over a chorus or something, but it doesn't really hit as a chorus, you know, or really strong. And like, so, and it was a tough writing process, being burned out from touring. And then we also had a new drummer come into the fold, which was a little like, you know, puts things a little shaky and nerve wracking. And like you said, the tremendous amount of pressure to deliver something. You know, I love it like I would love any child, but it's, you know, I think that I could have, you know, come to the table a little better. And then overall, maybe if we, you know, would have, I think we were a little ahead of the curve on the longer song department, right? Because I don't think, not you personally, but some of the folks at Roadrunner said, like, we really don't know what to do with this. And then, but then, like, shortly after, a lot of bands came out that had longer songs. And I'm not saying that we started that trend. I think that a lot of times it's synchronicity, right? Like, this in the water. But then, so it was just kind of weird. Like, it was slightly like ahead of its time. But I think if it would have came out a little later, it would have been like, oh, now they're doing long songs too. So it's just like, I think we were kind of a little damned if we do, damned if we don't in that moment in time. What about you, Rob? It's your favorite though, right?
It is. I agree. I agree with everything you guys have said. What Monty's assessment of, you know, the difference between Impossibility and that one. I also will interject real quick and say that while you feel, Mark, about your performances and however you felt about that, I think that they're perfect. There's not a thing I'd change. So just know that perspective exists. But yeah, I knew full well that the self-titled songs didn't have the immediate that the Impossibility songs did. I knew that there was a greater depth that would require longer attention spans to check out, but I thought that would just happen. I thought people would take the time to listen and that they would click and they'd appreciate it for the way that we appreciated the songs. It just took a really long time for that to actually happen. Where now, you know, I think people respect that record. Yeah. In a way that just didn't happen for the first few years, you know.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I know that you were leading the charge. Like, my memory of that was that creatively, you know, with the longer songs and the more progressive, you know, arrangements that I was told at the time, I guess by Mark and you, I guess that you were leading that. So yeah, it is tough because when you have songs that are less immediate, it takes a little bit longer for it to marinate. But you will find, like you're saying, that over time, records that might not have been appreciated when they came out are appreciated and reassessed later on. And I think a lot of people are way more into the self-titled than they were at the time. But either way, I never was afraid of change. Like that, you know, you writing longer songs and changing the formula would have not have been something that scared me as your A&R guy. Like, I liked when bands progress. I don't think bands should make the same record twice in a row. But you know what it's like being in a band, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Sure. Like, if you know, some fans are complaining, oh, how come it doesn't sound like Impossibility? But if you did Impossibility Part 2, people would complain that the band didn't progress.
We didn't progress. Yeah, we're AC/DC.
You can't ever win. But right. I always, and I still to this day, I welcome any of the bands I work with to creatively progress and follow their muse and you know, do something different. It's just, I think it has to be done in a careful way. Like, if you're going to progress, you can't go from A to E. You got to do, you know, A to B to C. You got to slowly get there. It can't be that great of a change. And I didn't think it was with this. Right. I'm not, you know, I thought it was a smart change. I didn't think it was anything like too extreme. You guys were going to lose your fan base, whatever. And people liked the record. It did well, just not quite as well as Impossibility.
Sure. What I liked about working with you in that regard, and I think fans should know, I mean, the three of us know, but I try to also speak about this when the question's asked, is you never interfered with our songwriting, which was great, because there, you know, a lot of artists might say that not Roadrunner in particular, but labels will interfere and want to be in charge and help with the songwriting and this and that. But you always just kind of let us do our thing. With Impossibility, you didn't say like write a specific song like this or like that, or even with this album, you were just saying like, you know, kind of giving encouragement to keep going and, do better. Just always keep improving. I never thought you put your hands in the cookie jar, and that was another thing we as artists could respect a lot.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, look, I'm not a musician, right? I can't play a fucking music, I can't play anything. So it's not like I could go in and write songs for you guys or give you specific direction. All I could really do is just push you to be the best you could be.
Right.
That was my job, was to just push bands like, hey, we don't have hits, we don't like, I mean, with the Impossibility, just pushing you guys is what gave us Power Trip and Pure Hatred. So that's all I would ever do in my entire career with any of my bands, is I would just basically nudge them and push them to be better. But I couldn't specifically get in there hands-on and like do these things. And you talk to a lot of producers, so we'll say the same thing, right? There are some producers that are very hands-on, that they could go in and help you, Mark. They could help you write a top line for a chorus. They could help you write a guitar part, right? And then there are other producers that can't do any of that stuff, that they can only do what I can do. So, producers that will push you guys, but they're not going to do the work for you,
Right.
I mean, ultimately, it should come down to the band. No one else should write your songs. It's got to come from you guys.
Yeah.
But, there are plenty of times. I know we didn't get specifically hands-on with you guys because you guys weren't a radio band, right?
Right.
But there were so many times when bands at Roadrunner would deliver a radio song organically. Like, Spineshank on the Height of Callousness record, they had written this song called New Disease. I don't know if you guys, fucking amazing song, right?
Oh yeah, we toured with them a bunch, and I sang that with them almost every night. Yeah, I love that song.
I mean, that song's phenomenal. But when they were making that record, we weren't pushing them to write a radio song. Like a lot of the radio songs for the metal bands at Roadrunner, like when Dino wrote Replica, for example, a lot of these tracks came organically, and that's how they should be. But then, so a song like New Disease was written organically, but then of course, we have some success at radio, and all of a sudden we've used Spineshank as a radio band. And then on the following record, we are just up their ass to write a radio song. And you know what? It never comes about that way. It's like, not only don't they make a radio song, but then you kind of poison the well and you hurt the record because you put this band in a different mindset of the kind of record that they have to make, and they don't deliver the radio song, and then they don't deliver the classic metal their fans want either.
Right.
So it just never worked. When you tell a band to go write a radio song, it just never works. It has to happen organically. I mean, looking back at it now with a band like Spineshank or some of the other bands we worked with that were in the same quandary, what you should really do is just go let them make that record, keep your mouth shut. Then when the record's delivered, say, okay, now go write a radio song, right? And then maybe you'll get something special at the end. But if you don't get something special, you have the record, and the record is not tainted by... the record is pure. Right. So you get a radio song afterwards. That's really the way to do it in a situation like that. But it's not always possible, because you know what it's like. When you're making a record, look at all the moving parts, and you got to fly, and everyone's there. And it's hard to just end that and then start it back up again a month later to go in and do one song.
Right,
so
it's
a good concept to do it after the fact, but it's pretty hard to get the machine rolling again to do it. Back then it was, not so much now when bands are just doing shit in their house,
Sure. If I'm not mistaken, and I know it wasn't the exact same way you mentioned it, but sort of, is Def Leppard with Pour Some Sugar on Me. They were done with the album, I heard, and they were like packing it all up and getting ready to go, and Joe Elliott just was messing around on his guitar and started singing Pour Some Sugar on Me. And Mutt Lange was like, that's the best song on the record. And he got more money from the label, and they went in, and bam, that song was born. But that's kind of like similar. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is Def Leppard are going in to make a radio record. So the guy hears it, and he's like, hey, that's a radio song. We should have recorded that.
Right.
This is a little bit different, because if I'm sending Spineshank into the studio and saying, you got to have 2 or 3, we need a follow-up to New Disease, it just changes their process.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that was the problem. I think in 9 out of 10 cases, when me as an A&R guy would push a band for a radio song, we usually wouldn't get it. And if anything, and could potentially compromise the record. I think that happened a bunch of times. But, everything is hindsight. You just learn so much. Looking back now, it's just so easy to see all the various things you did wrong, But that's
I
life.
was just thinking the amount of wisdom you just unpacked there, talking about all that kind of stuff is you can't buy that. Think how many situations you've been in personally to even determine that the best thing to do is just let the band do their thing. Don't tell them that you want a radio song. That's the only way you're going to actually might get one is by not telling. That's great. I love it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Mike, look, I'm one of these A&R guys. I'm not ego driven. Like there are certain A&R guys, they want to insert themselves into the process because of their ego. My whole thing was basically if the band, sometimes the best role you can play as a band's A&R guy is just get the fuck out of the way. Don't fuck it up. You know, so I could, over the years, I would insert myself to varying degrees. There were times where I micromanaged records because I thought the bands needed it. And then there are times that I had no involvement. When you're working with a band like Opeth, my sole role as the A&R guy is to call up Michael and saying, send it when it's done. You know, like, you know, when you're dealing with these genius, proven fucking musicians, you just stay out of the way and let them do their thing. You don't need to put yourself into the process if you're not needed. But if so, I was always, you know, it wasn't about me. It was about serving the band, so I could be involved to whatever level I needed to be.
Yeah, you were great to work with on the helping us for with Impossibility, because a lot of people don't know, but you took over for us when Kevin Estrada, who's originally signed us, Kevin Estrada worked on Pass Out for fans that don't know, and then Monte came on Impossibility and the self-titled.
Well, wait,
during
was Kevin there at the beginning of Impossibility though?
I don't believe he was.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't recall that, honestly. Unfortunately, I don't recall. Kevin's awesome though.
yeah, well, yeah, just, you know, I mean, just for the record, I didn't sign Chimaira. They were signed by Kevin Estrada, our West Coast A&R guy, good friend of mine, amazing A&R guy. He's, you know, has a career as a photographer now, but the guy's got great ears. And Kevin was always a very hands-on A&R guy, helping bands with, you know, really getting involved, like more so than me even. And yeah, but I was Kevin's boss. I was the head of A&R, so I hired him and all the A&R guys, you know, I oversaw them all. So when Kevin signed Chimaira, it was me. I was giving it the thumbs up. In other words, I endorsed the signing. He wouldn't sign a band. He couldn't really sign a band that I didn't believe in and didn't help him get through the gauntlet at Roadrunner. So I was always a Chimaira fan. So it was just a natural thing when he left the company for me to take the band over. So yeah, I was more hands-on Impossibility.
Right. And you were, what I learned with working with you on that, which was really cool, we did the cover together and we did the copy together, which is what you were talking about earlier when the Deicide story and the leads and everything. Copy is the song titles and the lyrics and the thank you credits, the production credits. You and I always did that together for the CD book or the, you know, the inlays, and we did those together, and that was always fun. And we would interject all of the work monotony with a lot of Deadwood and Curb Your Enthusiasm jokes. Well,
dude, I still love Palestine Chicken is like the all-time greatest half hour of
that one. I love the MAGA hat episode. That one put me on the floor when he was wandering around with the Trump hat trying to get away from everybody.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I was very, you know, like you said, I would literally the entire time at Roadrunner, bands would deliver me credits. I'd be the one to like type them up in the Word, you know, I would type it all up, like hands on. I mean, I proofread every fucking line. I made sure that there wasn't any grammar, like any spelling shit. Like I cared. Because I'm very OCD and anal retentive. So like, you know, if a record comes out and there's a word misspelled, it bothered the shit out of me. So
what about this? Would this bother you? Like I hate in the rare circumstances where I get lyrics from a guy that I've got to put in something or whatever like that, and I'm following along. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't say that there, or that's not the right word. From what you
Dude, Monty was so big about that. Yeah,
I absolutely do this to this day. Like, in fact, I just did it on the new Machine Head record. You know, Rob Flynn sends me he sends me the typed out lyrics. I don't have to type them in myself because now, you know, people email it. So Rob emails me the lyrics, and literally the only way to proof it, you could look at the lyrics to just see, like, you know, if there's spelling errors, but the only way to really know if it's right is to listen to it. So I'll put the lyrics up and I will listen to the songs in real time to make sure he's singing what's there, and I will always find shit, and he's always amazed that I find shit. I still do that to this day. Maybe not as much. I mean, I'll do it on bigger records like Machine Head, but most records I have kind of given that up. Like, I don't really care about spelling errors and shit anymore, only because everything's, you know, streaming these days, right?
Right,
People,
right,
I mean,
right.
I know you can look at lyrics. I know on Spotify, for example, they'll have lyrics, but I just don't, I think like lyrics and credits are just a lost art at this point, right? Like, so many people never, yes, people buy vinyl and CDs, but like 99% of the fans that are consuming your music aren't seeing a lyric sheet.
That's
So
a shame
because
that's lost. That was so much
Yeah.
of the experience of getting a
Yeah.
CD, as you know, just looking at the artwork and everything in it. You know, that's
Yeah.
totally lost.
it's a lost art. So I've relaxed, you know, that control a little bit. Like, there are records that come out, I don't even proof the lyrics at all. I'm just like, I don't care. No one's gonna fucking see them.
Yeah.
But for a band like Machine Head, who still sells a lot physically, and it's just a band like one of band that I've worked with since '94 that are near and dear to my heart, you know, and I know Rob really, really cares about his lyrics. So for a band like that, I'll do it the old school way. But the great part is also when you do that, when you're reading the songs along with the lyrics and really nitpicking it, it's amazing how quickly it allows you to learn the music. Like, so when I did that on the new Machine Head record, by the time, and it takes like, you know, I go really slow and I'm careful. It takes like 3 hours to do, right? Because then you got to like, not only got to look for errors, but then you've got to note them and like, right. And I got to like make notes to be able to send to Rob, whatever. So the whole thing could take like 3 hours. But when I'm done with that, I feel like I know the record as if I just played it 10 times. Like, because I'm really ingesting it at that point. So it's kind of a fun experience for me as well.
Speaking of Rob Flynn and the self-titled, I don't know if you recall this, but you put us in touch. We had become friends before, but you put us in touch to, excuse me, like I reached out to Rob to help with my lyrics and kind of he kind of became like not a ghostwriter or anything, but like a secret mentor that would like look over my lyrics and kind of give a thumbs up or thumbs down, and he was pretty vocal in that. And then we kind of started trading that off with each other back and forth through a couple albums. And so it's that relationship with two lyricists kind of bouncing off. Hey man, is this cool? You know, that started because of you on Self-Titled.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, hey, I didn't invent the concept, right? That's like, you know, musicians do that with each other. But, you know, even though like Rob may have been a mentor to you, that's something he does too. Like, to this day, Rob will have other people that he looks to for like input the same way you were looking to him.
Yeah, no, he sent me. He didn't send me this previous record, but this record, but the previous one. He asked me on that one, and it was cool, and just it was cool, like having the ability to kind of do the same thing with each other. But yeah, it started with you, and I still am now turning back into physical media. And I want recordings to go back to more organic because I'm so sick of how everything is with the streaming. And if we were to ever explore the idea of new music, it would have to sound just like those classic Roadrunner era records, you know, because
by the way, it's such a new era. Like, I know that the idea of like making a new Chimaira record may seem daunting. You don't got to make a record. You can make a song. Right. Waters, go do one fucking song. Maybe you're not inspired to like do a whole record, or you only have a few songs you're into, but you could just, dude, anybody could throw a fucking song up on, you know, on streaming services and see what the reaction is.
Yeah, right? I know. What? Yeah, you're not wrong.
And it's not. You like maybe I've keyed it, you know, caught into something that's happening here.
No. But
anyway,
you definitely
dude,
don't want to get anyone excited.
I'm an album guy, so that's something we'd have to discuss, you know.
But hey, if it's one song, no pressure, right? I mean,
sure.
Makes it easy.
There's what I do like about the current state of the music industry is that there really aren't a set state of rules anymore. Where back in the day when we were doing all of this, it kind of felt like a cycle. And that's hence the word album cycle, right? We're touring on the Impossibility of Reason. You write, you record, you put your couple music videos out, then rinse, repeat. Now it's, like you said, you could put up a song randomly. You could come out with a video. You can put EPs out. You can self-release. You can still work with labels. It's just not a set state of rules anymore, which is nice. My complaints about the current state is, while I like a service like Spotify for its convenience, I feel much more interested now in getting back to my younger self and holding the physical media in my hand and putting the record on and looking at the artwork, looking at the lyrics, showing that to my wife, because she didn't grow up in that era. So it's like, hey, sit down, hold this, look at it, stare at it,
Yeah.
like smoke a little grass, feel it, like it's just a whole different experience when you're doing it that way.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, look, I got into music. I think I bought my first record, one of my first records, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic in 1977. I was 13, and it was such a different experience back then, right? Like first of all, it was hard to find records, right? You had to make an effort. You had to like get to the mall. You didn't drive back then, right? So you had to find a way to get to a record store. You had to hope that they had the record in stock. You had to hope you had the money to afford it, right?
Yeah.
And so it was so special back then. You bought a record and you treasured it. And I remember as a kid, when I would buy a new record, it had I would play it anywhere from like 7 to 10 times in full, where you're sitting and you're listening to the whole thing and digesting it 7 to 10 times until I felt like, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next. And you really would learn these records, right?
Yeah.
But now there's just so much music that, literally, if I could play a new record once, that's a lot. There's so much I want to listen to. You can't no one has the time to digest the record and play it 7 to 10 times, right? It's just impossible. So I love the old experience of really being able to learn a record, look at the artwork, and just do it the old school way. And I feel like that's a lost art. And I still like to do that. But, right now, of course, I stream. I have Spotify on all day long while I'm working, playing it in the background. And I worship the convenience of it and having the entire history of music right there. But at the same time, it's so hard to focus and concentrate because literally you're at your computer and you have the entire history of music sitting right there. So to go and play a record for 45 minutes means you're not checking out everything else. So it's really hard. But even when I try and do it the old way, Mark, like you were saying, like let's say I'm inspired by this chat and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go play Chimaira's Self-Titled tonight. I'm going to put it on, put headphones on, do it on the hi-fi and try and just sit and spend 50 minutes or however long the record is. And I find that after 3 or 4 songs, my mind starts to wander and I start multitasking. So all of a sudden I'm on the computer, I'm reading, I can't just sit there for 50 minutes and immerse in the music anymore. I just don't have the patience to do it. It's just such a different culture these days,
I guess I want to rephrase how I do it. I am multitasking even though I'm listening to vinyl or something. I'll be working, but it's still a different experience because I'm paying attention to the sonics differently. And the art of having to get up and hold it in your hand and you're looking at it and pick it up and flip the sides and put on the other record and this and that. It's a lot more. I don't know that I sit there and just meditate though.
Oh no, that's what I was talking about. Literally, I'm going back to when you were a kid.
It depends on how much grass I have and how long I'm sitting there staring off into space listening.
When we were kids, right? We're sitting in our stereos are in our bedrooms. We're sitting on our bed, and literally, you are doing nothing for 40
else.
minutes.
Yep.
Except looking at the vinyl, turning it back and forth, reading the lyrics for the 40 minutes while it's on.
All right, I'm gonna try to do that then.
Yeah, you're learning.
I won't multitask at all anymore.
But wait, you did that so much that after a while you started associating the music with the color of the cover. So when you listen to Deep Purple in rock, you're picturing sky blue because of the cover, right? Literally, the music is colored by the artwork, the colors of the cover.
Use Your Illusions 1 or 2. Have interesting colors. I always like that orange and yellow, and I think of those songs like that, just like you're saying. I never thought of it until now, but
you always have a color in your mind, and when you're listening, because of how embedded. Now, it's not going to happen to these kids these days that are looking at little nails on Spotify.
No, not at all. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is a bit of a side tangent, but there's something I've always wondered about, Monty, that speaking of listening and all this, I'll just take this opportunity to ask it now. Last time I was in your office over 20 years ago, back at Roadrunner there, you had a stereo setup. And then over the years, I also learned that you had a stereo setup at home. And I was just wondering, how do you listen to music when you're just checking out a band to see if you want to sign them versus listening to final mixes? Do you have a certain environment that you do either or in, or is it interchangeable? Or
what I would tend to do is in the office, and I had a really good setup in the office, not as good as the setup I had at home. But I would listen in the office on a hi-fi system, but I wasn't really analyzing the sonics. when I was listening to mixes or mastering, I would do that at home because that's where I had the better setup.
So you'd reserve that. You'd say, you'd think to yourself, I can't listen to it at the office. I got to wait till I'm home, and that's where I'm going to absorb it.
Well, I would listen in the office, but I wouldn't make any final decisions until I got home. Like the home was my reference system. And I don't know if you guys heard about my notorious headphones, right? My headphones are legendary.
I know all about them, yeah.
Yeah, I basically bought a pair of headphones in 1981, KOSS, K-O-S-S, and the brand, they were HV1 headphones. And I basically had these headphones from 1981. They finally died during COVID. So they fell apart in 2020. So I had these headphones for almost 40 years.
Wow.
And literally, now keep in mind, in 2020, when they died, I was already out of, I left Roadrunner in 2012. I was at Nuclear Blast by then. But my point is, for my entire career, everything I ever did at Roadrunner was through these headphones. Every mix, every mastering was through these headphones. And I've never found a pair of headphones that sound anything like these. In fact, they're literally falling apart. Like, you have the leather headband on the top. These things were so old, the leather was petrified. It was like a piece of rock.
They should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they should.
And, and I had to replace the cushions on them multiple times. And basically, I knew that they weren't going to last forever. So I actually found these headphones on eBay several times over the years. You can still find them on eBay occasionally. I bought a few pairs over the years on eBay, got them home, put them on. They sound nothing like my headphones. Nothing.
Whoa.
Because, there's a theory, and I think it's true, a theory called headphone burn-in.
Huh.
Did you ever hear about this?
No.
The theory of headphone burn-in goes that when you buy a pair of headphones, you have to play like 1,000 hours of music through them or something, whether it's 500, I don't know what the number is. But you basically have to use these headphones for a long time and crank them, maybe like 1,000 hours until the headphones self-actualize, until you're going to get like the true sound.
Wow.
And I totally believe that theory because I've listened to hundreds of thousands of hours of music through these headphones, and I'm buying these pairs, same exact headphones on eBay, and I'm telling you, they sound nothing like mine. And that's when I realized, like, this headphone burn-in thing must be true because, I'm cranking music through the driver of these headphones for like 10, 15, 20 years, and it just kind of changes the way they sound, Anyway, I've never been able to find another pair, and
but you went with what you've got on now. That's what you listen to.
Well, I've been without these things for 20 years, since 2020. And I got to say, when I lost these headphones, I actually started listening to music less. Like the experience, just like without these, it just kind of killed the experience for me.
Wow.
So I have other headphones now that I listen to that I like, but nothing like these. And I actually listen to my stereo and I listen to it less because I don't have these. That's how married I am to these headphones.
Damn.
They should be in the museum.
Yeah,
they should. They should.
100%. Great story.
Yeah,
But
man.
I would always, those were my gold standards. So I would get home and play things through those headphones.
Cool.
And to this day, I've never found anything that sounds even remotely as good as these.
And when you said you bought the eBay ones too, you were able to find the actual ones from like 1980, like the vintage.
The exact model.
That's cool.
Yep. In fact,
it's cool that you can find them.
Well, I still have a bunch of pairs here because I bought them 3 or 4 times. I tried it over the years. Like you'd see it turn up, and none of them sound good. But I'm wondering, because I still have everything, and I still have the headphones that don't work, and I think maybe one day I just need to find someone who can fix my headphones. I could send them these other eBay copies, these eBay ones, maybe for parts, because the ones on eBay don't have the petrified leather. It's still soft. So maybe one day I'll reconstruct these things,
Wow.
But
do you still actively sign bands at Nuclear Blast? Is it like comparatively speaking to the heyday of the music industry, like how often is a new band getting signed these days?
Yeah, no, I still actively sign new bands. One of the things that I'm doing a little differently now is, when I worked at Roadrunner, Case only wanted new bands, right? Everything was about us discovering bands. Case didn't want to get into the established bands business. Like, yes, a band like Megadeth comes along or Rob Zombie. Of course, who's not going to want to sign that, right? But signing a band like Megadeth is easy. You could literally be deaf. I could lose my hearing and not be able to hear a thing and still be able to sign Megadeth because there's no hearing involved. You just can, you see that they mean something that it's good business, you sign them. So signing established bands is a very, very easy thing to do. Case never wanted it though. But then, of course, once I came to Nuclear Blast and things change in the music business. It's, so you know how hard it is to break bands these days, and how hard it is to make money in streaming, and basically everything changed in the music business in my Nuclear Blast days, and all of a sudden, signing established bands became really good business. Right? It was easier to sign Megadeth than to try and break some band and take them from 0 fans to like mean something. So that was very, basically breaking bands is more difficult in the modern era. So I think established bands is more attractive. So I do a combination of both at Nuclear Blast. I'm going to sign established bands, but I also want to sign bands that, newcomer bands. At Roadrunner, we call them baby bands. Here at Nuclear Blast. At Nuclear Blast, and I think most labels today, they use the word newcomers. So you want to have a good balance of signing established bands and newcomers. But ultimately, the real art of A&R is to sign newcomer bands, right? That's the brass ring, to just find some band that no one's ever heard of and blow the band up. That's like why we do what we want to do. That's fun. That's the fun part, is to sign and break newcomer bands.
The thrill of the chase.
Yeah, that's way more rewarding than just signing some established band, But I do a combination of both now, because it's, as most labels do. You take you see an established band become free. I remember when Seven Dust became available years ago, and I was looking at them, and I'm speaking to the manager, and he's like, yeah, like we got like 16 offers, and I'm talking to other established bands that are all telling me they have like 15 to 20 offers, which just goes to prove that signing established bands is a really lucrative business right now, because nobody has the money or the patience to try and break bands, but of course we still do, like I said, of course I do that. And that's the focus of NB, is signing and breaking new bands. That's what it's all about.
I really liked that Aluvial record you did.
Yeah, wasn't that fucking great?
So fucking good, and the tones are so good. Wes is such a fucking great guitar player. I really like that album a lot. The single they did with him singing on it.
Yeah, 40 Stories.
40 Stories. That's one of. I'd put that like in my top 5 of the past 15 years of songs. Like, it's so fucking good.
I mean, Wes is such a pleasure to work with. The guy, I don't know if you realize this, but he basically like self-produces and mixes the records. He has an engineer involved, but Wes is very, very hands-on, and really, guy's like a fucking genius, like a sonic genius. Totally understands production and mixing and writing. He's, he's really a self-contained unit. Like,
it's great stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Did you hear the stuff they did after the Sarcoma record?
I did. I very much like dude, that fucking riff is gnarly, man.
But by the way,
what I like about Aluvial, comparatively speaking to a lot of modern metal bands, is Wes still remembers there's such thing as the riff.
Yeah.
Right. He makes sure that there's a memorable riff, which is really good.
And did you notice the EP too? The EP is even sonically better than the record.
Yeah, dude.
The EP's got insane bottom end. It's like
it's
like very high fidelity, like more range than the self-titled. But Sarcoma sounds amazing too. Like, maybe it's not a beefy sounding mix, but like the guitars, everything is so clear and just
it's crystal clear. And it's one of my favorite records of the past. I listen to it a lot, and I was really sick with health, and I was listening to that album a lot, and it kind of helped me, like when you're not feeling well and they're going through a medical thing, that album was one of those ones that helped pull me out of some darker moments. So it was cool that I could just tell, like, that you were involved in that production a little bit anyway, because it just sounds so good.
I mean, really, it was all Wes. You talking about Sarcoma?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you can stand behind that product. Yes, I understand, like, Wes did it and everything, and the band performed the way they do and all that. But I mean, like, I can sense that your professionalism is behind it, making sure that a great product comes out.
Well, I guess my main input on that record is, when it was all done, I had Wes just back the mastering down a little bit to just get it to breathe a little more. So we took it down like a dB, but that was really it. The rest was him. But amazing sounding record. He's such a talent. But yeah, that's an example of signing a newcomer band like Aluvial. No one knew who they were. I mean, they actually had, that they had a record out prior. Did you know about that, Mark?
Yeah, the instrumental album.
Yeah, and
Right.
now like this was like him like doing a traditional band with vocals, and the guy that they have singing, Kevin, such a great death metal singer. Like
he's cool.
Yeah, so
he's a buddy of mine now. We became
Yeah.
friends actually we met during the pandemic on Twitch. A lot of musicians gravitated towards Twitch because they really didn't know what else to do. And a big part of that community was, if my channel was done, we would go into someone else's channel or vice versa. And so Kevin wound up coming into our channel, and then we would go into his channel, and we became friends with the band. And I didn't even know who he was. Like, he was like, I used to sing for Suffocation.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? I didn't know about that era. And then like he played his band for me, and I'm like, yo, I need to take a couple steps back. This is your band? Like, it really blew me away. Like, and that's hard to do in this era, and especially being an older dude, right?
Same thing for me. Like, I'm very, I've been doing this a long time, so I'm very jaded. So it takes a lot to get me excited. And I heard that Aluvial stuff, and it just blew me away.
Yeah, same.
And, and I love the enunciation in Kevin's voice. He's one of my favorite death metal singers.
Yeah,
cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got I'm making a note.
What a review you guys have just.
I gotta send you Machine Head Black album. I gotta send you Heathen.
Okay.
I have your I think I have your email, Rob. But I'll copy Mark when I send you stuff just in case.
Okay.
And I'll send you an Aluvial. Yeah, I'll send you a bunch of stuff over the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It was big on me, and another thing that's cool too that you're big responsible for, and then a lot of fans might not know, but it's just all the classic records and how we're even here right now that you've been a part of. Like, I used to shop for CDs and stuff growing up, and this is back when they had the long boxes on CDs, right?
Yeah.
And I would go towards the metal stuff because that's what I liked, and growing up I listened to Slayer or Megadeth, kind of the classic stuff. And then there was this really cool record store by my house that carried bands that like I hadn't heard of, Sepultura and Obituary, and like, so I would blind purchase these albums, and then I started to notice that they either said Road Racer or Roadrunner, and I kind of put two and two together that was one and the same. And so I started just buying records based on Roadrunner, like,
right.
and so Obituary, I look at the back of it and I'm like, that guy's wearing a Sepultura shirt. Oh shit, it says Roadrunner on it. Like, this branding you guys did back in the era, whether you realized it or not, it was so, we just would blind buy anything Roadrunner after. Like, you would let's buy 2 or 3 records, Death, or when I got Symbolic, I remember buying Arise, even, just classic memories of all the Roadrunner, King Diamond, like,
but
everything.
But, I mean, that's the goal, right? The ultimate goal of a label is to create a brand that means something, where a kid could just see the logo on the back of a record and take a chance because he has faith in the label and knows it will deliver. And so many labels have accomplished that. I mean, that was the beautiful thing about Roadrunner, although that did get compromised, like when Nickelback came along and broke. And then we started signing some rock bands. All of a sudden, you had to do a little bit more homework. You couldn't just buy it anymore for the red logo. You had to be like, well, wait a minute. Is this like Roadrunner metal, or is this their new direction? So I think when Nickelback came along, it compromised that brand a little bit, or at least made fans have to be more on their toes and like be careful what they were buying. But yeah, there are so many labels over the years that have achieved that. I mean, you look at Metal Blade, Earache Records, and
Victory.
Of course, where I work now, Nuclear Blast. I mean, what's a fucking strong, I mean, what's a better fucking brand than Nuclear Blast? Like, you see that the classic logo, and now, of course, we have the new logo. Sure. But, you see that, and you just know it's quality, you know it's going to be cool. And, it was amazing to be part of that at Roadrunner, and equally amazing. That's part of why I came to Nuclear Blast. When I left Roadrunner, Nuclear Blast just filled a lot, ticked off a lot of the same boxes as Roadrunner for me. It was a company that was international, so I could sign bands and have them released around the world. It had a strong branding, the name meant something. And it was an honestly run company, like Roadrunner, for all, people could talk shit about it. The contracts were brutal, whatever they were, right? But
we had a good contract, but it hurt us in the end. Like, a lot of bands signed for less, and then they had more promotional money. We signed for a lot because we got trapped up in a bidding war with major labels. So we wound up getting a lot, but then like that hurt us because then, as they say, the pot ran dry, right? For the money. So that's another huge thing we learned, right? Like on how that business side of things works. But but we still loved it all, you know.
The
I wouldn't change
Roadrunner,
it.
I mean, the Roadrunner deals were tough because we would sign, you know, we would try and sign bands for 7 album deals. And when I say we,
Right.
this was not me. This was basically
company,
the rules of the owner of the label, Case Wessels. He wanted us to sign bands for 7 record deals, not do license deals, but own the masters for life. That's why Warner Music now is going to own your masters for life because of those deals. So yes,
Right.
they're brutal deals, right? But nobody forced bands to sign them. Bands did it willingly. They had attorneys, and they were tough deals. But we were an honestly run company, right? Everything was above board, completely honest. Royalties were paid, no shenanigans going on. And as I was saying, Nuclear Blast is very much the same way. Everything's
Right.
very above board and honestly run, which is one of the reasons why I came here.
That's
And
cool.
I'm continuing the metal mission here.
Yeah, we went to Nuclear Blast
Oh, right.
overseas once
I
we
forgot.
left Roadrunner. Yeah,
Yeah,
so we had
Resurrection.
Resurrection was Nuclear Blast and the Infection as well over there. Both of our favorite releases were Nuclear Blast, I think, or was it just Resurrection? Maybe it was just Resurrection.
Maybe Infection was E1 or
No. I'm pretty sure both. I could.
Wait,
Man,
what's
I don't
the one
even
we're
know
doing
what the
top-
hell my damn labels.
Wait,
what label we were on?
What's the one that we're doing on this weekend on the post?
Resurrection. That was a
Oh, right,
Nuclear
right.
Blast.
Yeah.
In definitely that. I'm 1,000% that was Nuclear Blast. And
Yeah, no, that was.
And
And I
for
think
some
the-
reason I felt like Infection was, but I could be wrong about that. I don't know who else would have put it out over there.
Well, wait, you know, you could look on Discogs. Hold on one second.
I can't believe this is when you know you're kind of getting old, when you just don't remember what you did
I
20
know.
years ago.
Hold on, I'll look this up. Chimaira.
But yeah, Nuclear Blast was awesome. You've been over to the German
Oh my God,
offices.
dude.
Yeah, it's insane.
When I
over
saw
there.
that, it just blew my mind. Like it's just metal culture and overdrive. I went over there for the
Right.
first time. They have their own record store on the fucking premises. You could walk from room to room, and it's just every single office you walk into is like a metal museum. Posters, shit everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, it just blew my mind when I went there for the first time. All right, I'm looking it up right now on Discogs. Chimaira Nuclear Blast. Let's see what comes up. Shit. Oh yeah, the Infection. Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but this
And then
goes
there
to
was
show how old we are that
another
we have
company called Long Branch did the E1 era records when that was who they were, Long Branch.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nuclear Blast is dope. They were another one that had Combat too when growing up. That was like, oh yeah,
I worship Combat. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, Combat, I like Combat even more than Metal Blade and Megaforce. Like Combat was my label. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that was like you knew you were getting some underground shit if you had that. It was a fun era, like being able to blind buy. Now you don't have to blind buy, which is a convenience. You could just listen to this stuff, but I don't know that it saturates as much, like you said. You don't want to listen to it over and over again. You guys put out that last Meshuggah though. I listened to that a bunch.
Yeah.
I listened to that last round more than 10 times. I can tell you that.
Wow, damn. Did you
It's
learn
fucking
it?
great.
It's a hard band to learn, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard band to learn. I mean, as much as I listen to them, they're not an air guitar band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's more of a like, just, that's making me feel, it gives you the castle face, I call it, where you're just like, you look like your face got smashed into a castle.
I never heard that. That's a great, I never heard Castle. Did you make that up?
Well, yeah, but we were like referring to women in England, like they all look like they had castle face. You know, like they would walk by the bus and like, oh, hello. Yeah. So,
I never heard that
I started
expression.
using
Right.
it towards metal.
Love
like
it.
it's like, ugh.
Well,
but,
I'm sure there's a castle metal genre, right? There's a metal genre.
There has to
Must
be. Like, well,
castle metal.
Sabotage comes to mind. The Hall of the Mountain King, he's in the castle, right? But yeah, I think it's just been really cool talking to you. We'll wrap it up. I have a bunch of things I have to do today. Unfortunately, my mom is in the hospital. I almost had to cancel this, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to sit here and do this and kind of get my mind off it.
I got to be honest, this isn't what I was expecting because I thought we were just going to be on the phone for like, that we were going to do like a 15-minute little chat on the cell
Oh,
phone.
my bad. Yeah, me too.
But wait, you wound up getting like a fucking
Yeah,
podcast out of me. And wait,
Yeah.
the reason is I don't do these. Like people want me to do these and I
Oh,
turn them
shit.
all down because I hate being filmed. I'm always afraid I'm going to say something wrong, like I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to say something I shouldn't say. I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to piss someone off. So I purposely never ever do these. And now I'm doing it. And now I'm realizing like you guys hoodwinked me because you got me to do one.
I
accident.
swear, I will. I did. That was not the intention. I just
No, I
wanted to
know,
have
I
a
know.
conversation.
I know.
Yeah.
Joking around. But anyway, this is very rare. The last time I did one of these was Rob Flynn. Did you see
I was
the
just
Rob?
going to say. I was just going to say that it's such a pleasure listening to you. I could listen to you all day, and the Rob Flynn one was amazing. Anytime when you get the chance, I learned so much. You've been great in this one. There's so many bombs that people are going to be like, "Wow, that's interesting. That's totally interesting. I didn't know that." Hearing about the classic stuff, whether it's Deicide or Fear Factory, just all that kind of stuff. People love this stuff. Trust me.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, Rob really had a twist of my arm to do that. Like I only did it just because he, peer pressure, right? He wouldn't leave me alone. So we did it, and I was like, as you saw, it was filmed, right? First of all, I hate being filmed. I'm very self-conscious. I hate when the camera's on me. Like this would be even better if there was no camera and it was just audio. But I didn't even know the Flynn thing was being filmed until, he's like, here, check it out. The cameras were in the walls. I had no idea I was being filmed. You could see me pounding. I started drinking Jägermeister at the beginning of that because I was so nervous to just even do it. But then, dude, we were doing it, and it was like an hour and 45 minutes, and Rob's like, all right, we got to stop. I'm like, damn, I'm just getting started. Let's go. Like, I was loving it. But that's the last time I really did one of these was that Flynn one. And it lives on YouTube. If anyone wants to see it, just look up Rob Flynn, no fucking regrets, and my name, and it should come up, but it's great.
Definitely worth listening.
Like
quick sidebar of that. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Rob Flynn was just on the Garza podcast. I'm about halfway through it right now. It's a 4-hour one.
I watched it. Yeah,
it's great. You come up many times. It's just great. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I want to hear that one. It's just 4 hours is so daunting. But I like I like the Garza podcast.
Me too.
The Garza podcast. I've seen a bunch of them now, and I thought it was it took him a while to like get his groove, And so at the beginning, I didn't think he was that great, but now I think he's really coming into his element, and I enjoy him as a podcaster. And I just find there's something so relaxing about his demeanor, that he gets bands to open up and gets them to relax. I mean, I saw Juan Brujo from Brujeria was on there. Fuck, did you see that one? He's crying his eyes out.
I didn't see that one yet, but I've watched the Flynn one, and I've watched the Chris Barnes one, which I liked a lot, and then I watched Glenn Benton because I didn't really know much about Glenn Benton, saw that one too. And I was really blown away by that because my perception of Glenn Benton is like this, like ultra, like fucking just metal, like eat, breathe, and shit it. But then he's like, he seems like he's like a jokester, and like he likes to have a good time, and he wasn't as brutal. Like he's like, I listen to Rush and I listen to classic rock. So I was like, my perception is way off.
It's called growing up, right? Because the Glenn that you think he is the fucking Glenn I dealt with at Roadrunner. That guy made my life living. He made my life living fucking hell.
All right.
He was such a ball buster and such a hard ass. But then, he grows up, and by the time I saw him when we were doing Roadrunner United in 2005, he had long left the label. He was on Eric at that point, whatever, and he was, by 2005 for Roadrunner United, he was a completely different person. He's the person that you saw on that podcast, just joking around like the elder statesman, making jokes, just chilled. It's just called mellowing with age.
Right.
But Glenn is just a fun fucking guy. He's a guy I could listen to for hours. He's highly entertaining, has great stories. And me and Glenn are like, we get along better now than we ever did back in the day. But I saw that on the Garza podcast, and I'm looking forward to watching the Rob Flynn one because like I said, I'm a big fan of Garza's podcast now.
I'll watch the Juan Brujo one now for sure.
Dude, I just find him very pleasant to listen to and very relaxing. Like he kind of soothes you with his voice. I can't even describe it, but I'm really excited to, I gotta find a way to make 4 hours to watch that fucking.
I did mine in chunks, an hour here, hour there, break it up.
But another one I just did recently. I don't do a lot of podcasts, but someone sent me a link to Gene Simmons and Rick Rubin.
Whoa!
I'll send you that link too. I'm gonna make a note right now because
that's pretty epic.
You got to hear it, man. Rubin's a great podcaster, and Gene Simmons really opens up and like. you know, people think Gene's a dick. Like, definitely not. Like, when I'm listening to this podcast, I'm agreeing with like 99% of what Gene is saying. And the guy is just a fucking walking encyclopedia on music history. Like, the guy's super intelligent and just a real fucking music historian. The Gene Simmons, Rick Rubin podcast is fantastic.
I would love to hear that. Yeah. Those are two legends. I've read a couple of Gene's books, and I've always been fascinated by his business savvy mindset, and just always found him to be interesting. And I'm still a huge Kiss fan, so
I could listen to Gene for hours. Like, he's just highly entertaining, you know.
Yeah.
But
what
he
about
gets
Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park, though?
The movie?
Yeah.
Fucking horrible.
I have
so
like a
disappointing
remastered
as a kid.
4K version of it.
But how disappointing was that as a kid? Like, this
it's
was
terrible.
the days before YouTube, right? You couldn't.
Right.
So, like, if I'm remembering correctly, that might have been the first time I ever saw Kiss in the flesh or got to hear what they sounded like, and it was such a letdown. You know?
This is the movie you guys are talking about?
They made a movie, and it's very very campy, and like what they wanted it to be and what it turned out to be were two completely different things. And it's one of those, it's so bad you know it's good kind of movies, like a Troll 2 or The Room, where you're just watching it like, what is this? And you're just, everyone's laughing at the absurdity.
Yeah, but now see it, but it's a cult classic.
Now it's a cult classic,
it's
right?
So bad that it's part of the appeal.
Exactly. I've watched it a couple times in the past few years, just with friends to have a laugh, and it's still like, it's hilarious. Like, you can't take it seriously.
Yeah.
But I digress. But hey, Monte, thank you so much again, and thank you also for taking a chance on us and getting us to where we are here to be able to celebrate this album.
Hey, it goes both ways, right?
Big part of it. Yeah,
it goes
for sure.
both ways. Having you guys on my resume as a band that I worked with, I get equal props out of that. I get as much being associated with you guys as you do with me. Trust me, I really mean that. So
it's amazing.
Totally, I'm honored to have worked with you guys. And by the way, I love the mastering on the self-titled that's coming out. Mark sent it to me.
Yeah,
sounds fucking great. I got to tell you, the people at Rhino, like, and it was just done by some in-house Rhino guy, right? Like,
it's not even Rhino. We actually doing it ourselves this time. We didn't go through Rhino.
I thought you guys they did it.
No. So, basically, like, we contacted personally the people at Warner and licensed it ourselves, and we put it out, and we personally are paying for the production of it all and the mastering and everything. But yeah, it was some random at the plant.
Really? You just used an unknown guy at the plant?
Yeah.
Dude, he fucking killed it. Sounds great.
I know.
Wow.
It was just one of those things where they're like, just take a chance on it. Why not? You know, let's see. It can't be that bad.
Well, I love it when I see these reissues come out. Like, just to see these records live on and reach new people, like, it just gives it new life. So I love when any of the records I've ever worked on get reissued and have new people discover them, you know.
And metal is in a very cool, interesting place right now. Like, even our band is having a nice resurgence, and we're able to do shows again and get, like, people want to see us, and it's bigger than it's ever been for us, which is awesome. So
Isn't that great when
wild.
You go away for a while, and then you see how appreciated you are, and you come back and you're bigger than ever.
It was all strategy. We planned this whole thing.
We planned it. Yeah, we planned. We planned breaking up. We planned it. We planned everything from the beginning.
Look at bands like Obituary, right? You know, bands like Obituary, they are literally printing money on the road. Like, that band, Obituary, has never had this, you know, never drawn people like they do now. They're such legends, you know, and like, it just proves, like, if you stick at it, like, if you guys were to go out on the road now and, like, do a new tour, like, you'd probably make more money than you ever made at the height of, you know, like, because people want to see it. This is a whole generation of kids that never got to see it back then.
Right. And there's so many more people on Earth now too, which is like 3 or 4 more billion people than when we were doing it, which is also insane to think about.
And I'm sure you get, like, called legends all the time now, right? Like, that's just legend.
Yeah, it's getting to be like we're starting to become a legacy band, right? Yeah. So if we're getting booked at some of these festivals, it's like a reunion legacy band, like, that people miss and want to come back. So it's been very surreal and very cool to be able to get back on stage and play these songs, and you can tell, like, fans want us to do more and more. So each year we're we're trying to give them more and more. So this is like a great opportunity, a huge launching pad for us, right? To be able to put this record out ourselves and learn kind of what you went through, just starting with Roadrunner, like putting the albums out. We were doing the copy ourselves, remastering it, making sure it sounds good. And I piggybacked it off of you to get that final approval. And it's very similar to like learning all the stuff we learned from our days working with you. So this is a great way to kind of reintroduce ourselves to the world and put out some stuff that they remember, but also, you know, get back out on stage again, and maybe we can twist our arms to write something new. Who knows?
Just one song.
All right.
Just
We'll
try
give you
one. Well, great doing this, guys. Great
Absolutely.
to reconnect. Rob, I'm going to send you a bunch of cool shit.
I'll look forward to it.
Mark.
Appreciate it.
Oh, man.
And yeah, let me know when this airs, and hopefully I didn't.
Tomorrow.
So we have your blessing. You're cool with it?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
As long as we have your blessing. If you're
I don't
all right
think
with
I
us,
said
then-
anything bad, right?
No.
No, you didn't. It's all good.
No, not at all.
You got to wonder these days with cancel culture. You got to be so careful.
I know
about
it's so
everything you say.
it's so stupid. I play Call of Duty all the time as that's how I unwind.
Yep.
And they make these characters, you know, and you can kill when you kill somebody. Like I have the Terminator, and he's like, "Fuck you, asshole." But if I say that in the chat, I get banned because they have AI making sure you're not like being rude, or, you know, because Call of Duty is notorious for banter shit talking between the players, and it's gotten so cancel culture that now they have AI monitoring you like a babysitter. And if you say anything bad, like the characters can decapitate you and say fuck you. But if I were to say fuck you at the end of a game, I'm gonna get banned.
Unbelievable.
It's
Yeah.
crazy world we live in. But no, you didn't say anything weird.
All right, good. All
Cool,
right,
man.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you
this
very
airs-
soon.
So this is tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Right, we're gonna try to get it out tomorrow. Yeah,
Dude, big day between that and the resurrection post.
I know, man. We're gonna be all over the place.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Bye.
again,
Always a
Monty.
pleasure, Monty.
Yeah,
Great to talk
bye.
to you.
Talk to you soon, Rob. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, guys.
See ya.